This quiet dork is secretly a goated getaway motive force. But while matters move incorrect, and the terrible guys want to clap his female, he has to fight for his existence, so this pink car arrives in front of a financial institution, and we now see the faces of men inside the car, one by means of one. All of the passengers appear like thieves. The lady looks as if she can steal my coronary heart. So that counts too. However, the driving force just seems like a toddler, and you may not trust this, but his name is Baby Infant starts playing song on his iPod, and the relaxation of the guys get out of the automobile. They take their stuff from the trunk and head into the bank. Whilst they are inside the bank, Baby's having the performance of an entire life in the automobile. However, while a cop vehicle flies with the aid of him, he is introduced lower back to reality. He appears in the bank and can see his guys rounding off, so he is aware of it's approximately to be showtime. He is now getting himself ready as his weapons run out of the financial institution and into the car. He does a brief reverse, then a pointy turn, and he's on his manor. However, the police are on his tail, but he is doing a quite accurate process at dropping them. He now has approximately 5 police motors chasing him. It's like Vice Town up in here, but Baby is playing it truly cool, simply swerving out of every chance. Then it gets to a point in which he receives inside the center of 2 other purple motors at the motorway. A police chopper has eyes on him, but he is going into the bridge and fast switches lanes with the auto on the left of direction. The chopper did not seize that, so that they still think he is the one inside the middle. It really is how they managed to break out. They dump the crimson car in an automobile parking space, speedy trade garments and cars, and the female drives them off. Now we see Baby really taking part in his walk together with his earphones on. This is the way you stroll when you've simply had a large payout. But then again, I do not have a job, so how am I able to relay it? He goes into a espresso store, orders 4 coffees and heads lower back to where the rest of the men are, just because the cash is being shared. Doc is sharing the cash at the same time as Griff asks if Infant is impolite. Duck says the R phrase means gradual. Became he gradual? I suggest that needs no reply. Doc says he's a very good kid, but a devil behind the wheel. Griff does not allow it rest, though he is nonetheless on Infant's ass. That sounds incorrect. Now the men depart document and Baby head to document's car. Doc takes just a wad of notes out of all of the bands there and hands it to Child. He says, simply 1 extra job and Toddler is carried out. You will apprehend better quickly. Now Toddler's home. He takes the wad of cash and places it in an underground compartment in the dwelling room, where there are extra wads of cash. His foster father Joe, who's dying, is sitting there looking, and Toddler asks him if he is hungry. He says usually me too. Joe, me too. Infant now goes to making breakfast, and just then Joe sees his son at the news as a robbery suspect. So while Toddler brings the food, he asks him in which he were given the cash from. Baby just says it is from work, and he promises he'll do simply 1 more job and he's done. Joe tells Toddler he would not belong in that international I recognize proper. Later at night time, Infant is bored, so he comes to a decision to make music from a communique he recorded in advance. He uses the component where document stated the R phrase method. Gradual became he gradual. He does a quite correct process, and he's happy with himself, so he sits back, listens to what he has carried out, then places the tape in a bag, where there are hundreds of other similar tapes at the least. He is aware of what his next career is. He alternatives one of the tapes, titled Mom, and it takes him back to the car crash which took the lives of both his dad and mom. He decides towards choosing up the tape, alternatively picks up his old iPod, seems at it for a piece, then picks up his cell phone and heads out. He is now sitting in a eating place, Bo's Diner, when this female who works there, Deborah, is available and singing a track with the lyrics BABY child. He quickly facts that element as he stares at her. He stares a lot that he doesn't even notice her on foot again towards him. She comes and asks him what he needs. She's without a doubt friendly, too pleasant. You might think she's flirting with you if you're uncautious. Whilst they may be speaking, the burner vibrates. She asks him what he does, and he says he's a driving force. She then says she's some way jealous that sometimes all she desires to do is head west on 20 in an automobile she cannot afford, with a plan she does not have. Simply her music and the street. Baby says he'd like that too. The cook now clears his throat loudly to break that off. Infant tells her she's so lovely just before she leaves. That is love at the beginning. Sight cannot relate. She's buzzing that equal tune as she's leaving. Child asks her what that track is. Next aspect, we see he is buying the record, then dancing to it at the house in the front of his advert. Joe has not even seen the girl, but seeing how she makes Infant sense, he says he approves of her. The doc breaks up the amusing "there's a new activity child made" inventory at the new vicinity and he's added to the new group. It's Eddie No-No's JD, and then Bats the guys are asking why Child is continually being attentive to Toon, and Doc tells them he has tinnitus from an twist of fate he had when he turned into a child, which means his ear is always ringing. Bats then is going over to Document and asks him about Toddler. Doc tells him Toddler has been driving. Given that he should see over the dashboard, he tells him some of the fantastic stuff the boy has performed, consisting of stealing his very own Mercedes. Now this is why Baby owes Doc tomorrow. We see the group in the vehicle. They arrive at the target location and someplace by way of the Nook. A man has his eyes on which you can inform he's a little suspicious anyway. JD tosses the mess to Bats and Eddie. Even as Infant begins his music they move do their factor and get back within the truck easy peasy. However, just as Infant starts writing off that guy who became suspicious attempts to prevent them, he runs his vehicle into theirs or even shoots with them. He is possibly ex-Mill. Due to the fact these revolvers and Glocks he's bringing out are some heavy stuff, but what he would not recognize is that is Baby he is handling. Of Rudy receives away, it's not clean, but it is Baby. They're on the dual carriageway now, and they find out that the military man is nonetheless on their tail. Batch tries to shoot him, however Toddler stops him by swerving off. The guy attempts to do what Infant simply did, but he fast reveals out that he would not have the sauce like Toddler. He crashes so awful. Infant continues using, and they get in traffic. So all of them come down and go to thieve the car at the front of the traffic. Bats would not care that the lady has a toddler in there. He still commandeers the automobile. The light now turns inexperienced and they drive off. While they're in the automobile, JD mentions that he left his shotgun behind. Pricey mistake. They get to a parking zone, transfer cars, and break up. In no time they come on the rendezvous vicinity and Baby goes to get the espresso. He is now not as jovial as the remaining time. He comes back to discover that JD has been made to head missing permanently. Subsequent up Child and Document take the luggage to the car. Doc gives him wad of coins and tells him he's all paid off now, but he has one final activity to do, and that is to sunset the trip in which JD's body is in. We quick reduce to the ride being squeezed and way down, and all this is taking Infant again to his more youthful days when he noticed his mom appearing whilst she got him his first iPod, while he noticed her being beaten up by his dad, after which the coincidence brings him return to the present. Healthful, he simply performs a track on his iPod, dumps his gloves the burner, and leaves. He heads return to Bo's diner, and who's the primary man or woman he sees? Deborah. Deborah's colleague tells her she thinks Infant's mother used to work here. Deborah is going by way of his desk and drops the coffee and starts off a verbal exchange with him. They speak about song basically, and boy can Debbie sing. She takes his recorder and sings into it. There's real chemistry among these. Deborah just directly up asked her if his mom used to paintings here and he says on occasion, but she changed into additionally a singer. She then asks what she does now, and he just says nothing. They say some extra inappropriate things, and then they depart off to the laundromat. She likes the song he performed for her, and that they get talking. He tells her about his tinnitus and how he got it from an coincidence which took his mother and father lives. She has a sad tale too. Her mother is also past due, and she appeared after her for a while, earlier than she died anyway. They set up a right date, and now we see Toddler at home amazing happy. He tells Joe a bit approximately Deborah, then he drops the wand of cash from Doc and tells Joe he's achieved for actual now. Jonah tells him to move, get a job as a pizza transport guy. Due to the fact would not or not it's wonderful to bring pleasure to human beings, whilst he drives. Infant is of the same opinion and is going to get the task. The primary client he supplies to is surprised at how rapid the pizza came properly. Permit me introduce you to the Toddler driver. He is going domestic, counts his money, and Joe makes a reference Deborah not putting our life in hazard. Next aspect we see is Baby and Debbie on a date. You can inform they're having an awesome time until the waiter comes and tells them someone already took care of the invoice. Who did Document? So Baby goes to Document, and you guessed it, he wishes him for any other task. Infant first says no, but Doc tells him he'd wreck his legs and kill absolutely everyone he loves if he refuses. No kickback, so Child has no different choice. However, that modifications his whole temper, and Deborah notices at the pressure back home. She tries to get him to talk, but he can't surely tell her what is taking place. Can he? However, if the lips can't speak, there's genuinely a different aspect they are able to constantly do. Aha. Besides, they make plans for the following day. Subsequent day. Document involves choose him up, and they power to the publish workplace. The process is happening day after today, but he desires Baby to go in there nowadays too. Get statistics about the vicinity, the number of customers, personnel, security cameras. If the safety guard is armed, all that stuff. Doc tells him to go in together with his nephew Sam because it's less suspicious. But the little boy is vital for more than just erasing suspicion, whilst Toddler remains struggling with taking note of the whole lot. Sam offers him all the statistics it's required, so Child Juice receives some stamps and is going. They head lower back to the automobile, and he relates the records to Doc, and then he takes Toddler again. Domestic Infant heads upstairs and calls Deborah. He has to peer Doc tonight, so their plans are cancelled. She says she notion he stopped writing, and he stated he concept he did too. This isn't always what he desires. She then asks him what he wants, and he says, I need to head west on 20 in a automobile. We cannot have enough money with a plan we do not have. Maintain writing in no way stop. He asks her if she's in. She says she is, so he says see you soon and hangs up. He suggests up for the activity at the new cruiser, mix of the old one's bats and then Buddy and Darling. It appears those two are part of one package deal. They do a little small talk, after which Friend heads over to Toddler and they're bonding over, sure you guessed it, music and speedy automobiles. They are being attentive to a song together, and by hook or by crook, that seems to harass Bats, who thinks you do not need music to force, just drive anyway. Doc comes and breaks up the conversations. He begins to study out the plans to hit the post office, as well as the equipment they may be wanting tonight. They choose up their gods, and after that they will all be spending the nighttime here, and they are off Bats' ass Infant to drag over, due to the fact he wants to be. He does. Bats gets off and the lovebirds are at it again. As they are putting out, Darling tells Pal she desires him to clap Bats after the process, because he looked at her funny. Oh wow, anyway that's comes returned, and they leave. They head directly to the pickup region. This little man dressed in all white gets rid of a material in Viola, all kinds of firearms, grenades too. If you thought this become going to be a easy buy, suppose once more due to the fact things very quickly mild up. Bats takes the primary shot and soon will become a complete blown shootout. Toddler very almost receives clapped, however Bats comes and saves him. They end off the opposite men, however. Darling receives a bullet to the escapes through the return door, while the cop within the vehicle runs into the restaurant. Toddler tells Deborah he has to head, but Deborah says she's coming with him, so that they disappear together. In the meantime, Pal's no longer going down on my own. He is taking the cop with him. Toddler goes to a payphone, calls Document, tells him he wishes his help, however Doctors hangs up. Deborah says they need to leave, however Toddler says he just wishes one factor first, then it would be just to have song in the road. She says they do not actually have a car, and simply as she says that a sweet red Mustang pulls up. Child is going and commandeers the auto he's going to in no way get in, and they drive off. They get to a parking zone and stop. Deborah has her coronary heart in her mouth. Baby goes up to me. Document he tells him he desires the ones tapes. Document says he is not giving them to him. Toddler says he has the cash orders inside the back he is retaining, and he'll change the bag for just one of the tapes. Doc nevertheless says not while he sees Deborah are available. That seems to exchange his mind. He permits Infant to get the tapes. Duck is a romantic. I see. He even follows them to the elevator and tells them to pass down. He offers them a bag of cash and says that should be enough. Why is he being so type, you ask? Because he was in love. As soon as because the elevator door opens, they see three guys taking pictures at them. Document tells them to run whilst he takes care of them. Doc receives shot, although so maybe, and Deborah stop to peer if he is okay. He turns to them and says I thought I told you to run. The cop automobile now arrives and Doc tells them to depart. He will deal with the law enforcement officials, but this is no longer the police officers, it's Pal. This guy has surely survived the whole lot. Now understand that tune. Friend and Infant bonded over that other time. However he plays it from the auto and places it at the highest volume. He tells Child it's his killer track. Duck starts shooting at him. The buddy without problems runs him over. He slams into every other card, then reverses and completely crushes Dog's frame. Baby fast makes use of that opportunity to choose an automobile key from the ground. He then takes the gun from his pocket and factors a dead frame who is using his automobile. He shoots, but would not without a doubt get muddy, so he jumps on the auto, and then over it is Pal slams into the wall. Infant and Deborah now get into a car and each motors are actually doing a head-to-head race. Child is reversing at the same time as Buddy goes forward facing him. Child manages to get Pal to slam into another vehicle, then he takes off his seatbelt and tells Deborah, we are getting out. We ought to end this with the aid of the time Pal has gotten himself back. Toddler and Deborah have left the car. He sees the automobile, but he does not see them. He's driving around calling out for child. Then he sees Deborah standing on my own, and she simply says now out of nowhere. Baby shows up in a truck and drives into Pal's automobile, pushing it over the railing. However, Buddy gets down just in time, nonetheless would not die. Baby comes out of the auto and appears at the cop automobile burning downstairs. Then from nowhere, however, he comes out and tells him he did appropriate, however, he took away something that he loves. So he has to do the same of direction. What meaning? But earlier than taking Deborah, however, he makes a decision to take out toddlers. Listening to first he shoots so close to infant's ears, and child is preserving his ears and inhaling pain at the ground. But earlier than friend is going to attend to Deborah, she grabs a rod from the cardboard, starts hitting him with it. It really is enough distraction for toddler to pick a revolver and clap Buddy with it. He shoots at him, and Buddy sooner or later dies. He falls and lands proper at the burning car. And the aspect simply explodes. Subsequent thing we see, it's morning and Deborah is riding with child inside the front seat. He is only simply waking up. Debbie is gambling along with his mom's tape, and it looks as if it is going to be fortunately ever after. But they get to a bridge that's blocked via cops. Deborah tries to do a quick reverse, but toddler hits the brakes. He tells her she doesn't belong on this global, takes out the key and is going out with his arms in the air. The cops come and take him, and subsequent we see him being transported to jail, and we pay attention. Deborah talking about him in courtroom. After her, we see the vintage female whose automobile he stole, but returned her purse. Then the other lady who he signaled now not to move in. Then in the end, Joe, my regulation understanding is not so good, but I think they're all acting as man or woman witnesses anyway. The choose sentences him to 25 years in prison. Difficulty to parole hearing after 5 years served, so I wager it's no longer that terrible. We see toddler receiving a letter from Deborah in jail. It's photographs and some simply sweet words. She says she cannot anticipate the day whilst it select the two of them track and the street speedy ahead a bit, and it appears his dream has ultimately come. Coming genuine ethical of the tale. Love at first sight is the least believable element of this movie.